Here's what the pier looked like as the members of the military were constructing it just off the shore of the Gaza territory. And this is what it looked like this week. It broke in pieces. Something happened in the Middle East this week that could sadly be a metaphor for the last 3.5 years of the Biden administration. You'll remember in the State of the Union address, the president pledged to make a floating temporary pier so that humanitarian aid could be funneled to the people suffering in that region during the war. Well, here's what the pier looked like as the members of the military were constructing it just off the shore of the Gaza territory. And this is what it looked like this week. It broke in pieces, floated away, and washed up on shore miles up the shore from the Gaza territories in Israeli territory. The pier was functional for 12 days, cost $320 million, and now it's useless. I start with you, Robert, not just with your foreign policy hats as a former State Department official, about American effectiveness and our ability to get things done. This is a bad look.
Yeah, it's, Larry, it's more than a bad look. I mean, we ran, during the time that I worked with Colin Powell, I ran myself programs in 70 countries. We didn't have a disaster like that. And the bottom line is this is sort of telescoping the Afghanistan disaster, the invitation of Putin into Russia, the mismanagement and the corruption tied to China, the waste of federal resources, both at home and abroad, into one little sort of moment where you can see that they don't think ahead. They're feckless. They really are all about sort of slap happy band-aids on things and looking back later at what could have been done. It shows me personally that the State Department is being poorly run, that the Defense Department is being poorly run, that there's no oversight, there's no foresight. And at the end of the day, we need new leadership. I mean, it all comes down to leadership. Larry, good things happen when good people who are conscientious and real leaders look in hard at a problem and look for a solution, and frankly get buy-in to create a lasting solution. That disaster is an example of how no lasting solutions have been created to any of the problems, and many of them have simply been made worse by this administration.
Elaine, this is a president who ran on Build Back Better. The grown-ups will be back in charge, a sense of normalcy, competence. This illustrative of what we've seen? A whole lot of money, whole lot of spending, not a whole lot of results.
Well, I think what I will say about the Biden administration when it comes to foreign policy, which is not my expertise, we focus on small business issues, but he's very, very consistent. His domestic policy on economics and fossil fuels, domestic drilling has been a disaster. And it's clear that his foreign policy doesn't look much better from my vantage point. So he's very consistent in how he runs his administration.
Yeah, and it also adds to, I mean, a lot of people compare these moments to the Jimmy Carter years with stagflation and high interest rates and people not affording to start a small business, let alone reinvest in their small business. And when you've got a high profile international embarrassment like this, it sort of does build this perfect storm, I think, Elaine, where people just have this sense of we can't get anything done right. And that then has a ripple effect back down to those small businesses that you guys are advocating for.
Absolutely. And we have certainly equated this economy under Joe Biden to the economy that was experienced under the Carter administration. We've run some ads actually that are comical in that vein. But Carter did experience the same type of economy with high inflation, stagflation, and he did have foreign policy embarrassment with the Iran hostages that he could not bring home. And so it is very similar. And I think the American people are seeing that and they're feeling it. And remember, inflation, if it was still calculated the same way as it was under the Carter administration, would actually be even a higher number than it is now.
And Robert, beyond the domestic repercussions of this and the embarrassment that Build Back Better is now floating into the Mediterranean Sea and inoperable after 12 days and $320 million, this also does have direct effect on America's stature abroad. Again, a president who said that the rest of the world will respect us again. And if you look at reports internationally about this floating pier, they're laughing at us now.
Yeah. Honestly, Larry, they've been laughing at us for a long time. They don't think this is an administration that can find their way out of a paper bag. And that's why everyone from Australia to Europe to our Middle Eastern allies are looking to others, sadly looking to China in many cases for guidance. It's really a disgrace. And I'm reminded by what Elaine said and what you've said of the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. This is truly what's going on. And by the way, he talks about statesmen in that poem. So the bottom line is this administration has essentially punted or committed unforced errors in just about everything they've touched. I think Robert Gates said something along the lines of everything that Biden touches is wrong. And it's just happening over and over again. I'm sure that this will be declared a victory because the beach didn't get away or something. It's just a disaster.
Yeah, and Robert, I'll just follow up for the last word here because you are an alum of that Reagan-Bush era in terms of working for those administrations. Is there a way for foreign policy under Donald Trump to be a campaign issue, a winning campaign issue again? I think the last president to actually ride into office may have been Ronald Reagan saying, elect me and I'll win the Cold War, and here's how I'll do it. And we had so many problems under Jimmy Carter with the Iranian hostages and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Generally speaking, foreign policy isn't a major issue for an election campaign, but will it be this time around?
Absolutely, no question about it, Larry. And one of the blessings of my life was to have spent time with Ronald Reagan and also with Colin Powell, not to mention George Herbert Walker Bush, but especially those two, because leadership is it changes everything. It's the magnet that pulls all the shards together. Foreign policy is a disaster right now, and that directly affects our national security, which, as Elaine indicated and you indicated, directly affect our economy here at home, our security here at home, whether it's illegal immigration. We had, I think, 451 Chinese cross our border in the last year of Trump. We've had more than 24,000 cross our border just this year. The numbers across the board from other nations are similar. We have a foreign policy that is in free fall, and that's why our allies doubt us. That's why Taiwan doubts us. Our European allies doubt us. And at the end and our Middle Eastern allies doubt us. At the end of the day, that can be changed by a strong-minded, well-centered, principled leader. And Reagan was that, and Colin Powell was that, George Herbert Walker Bush was that, and actually most of our presidents, all the way back to the beginning, have had an understanding that foreign policy plays a role in elections. This time, I think it's going to play 2 or 3 times the role that it normally plays because people feel made vulnerable by what this administration has done.
We'll let that be the last word. Robert Charles, thank you very much.